here on I-24 News. I'm Oded Grober. Thank you so much for joining me. Today on our show, we'll talk to the author of a book about the history of jazz in Israel. We'll visit MTV's first Israeli Music Awards. And take a look at some old school video effects that are alive and kicking in South America. Yair Dagan is a jazz lover who discovered that most people don't know about the illustrious history of jazz in Israel. He decided to fix that with his new book, Jazz in Israel, the First 50 Years. I'm very happy to have him here in the studio to tell us all about it. Thanks for coming in, Yair.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so where does it start? That's my first question. How far back are you going with this pretty big book?
Well, the book ends in 1980, so it goes back to the 30s, even 1925.
So we're going even further back than Israel?
Yes.
All right, so the
British Mandate.
During the British Mandate, there was already a big love for jazz in Israel.
Well, we have to remember that jazz was the popular music of that time. Any dance music was called jazz music. Any event that had a dancing orchestra, it was a jazz orchestra.
I see. And what's the earliest reference to jazz that you were able to find?
The earliest source I found is from 1925 from a journalist called Sophie Arin Leib. She was sent here to cover the Jewish life. And she wrote an interesting piece, Jazz in Jerusalem.
Jazz in Jerusalem.
Less, yeah.
1925. Wow, that's pretty far back. Now, this is your first book.
No,
am I right?
The second.
Your second book,
but not on jazz.
Not okay, but you're not an author. I mean, this is kind of a hobby of yours.
It is a hobby. Yes, it is a hobby, and I started it because all the jazz musicians that are covered in the book are my culture heroes. I'm a jazz fan since the early 70s. And my oldest son, which he learned the saxophone at Tel Mayalin School, the Department of Jazz.
Yeah.
And when I told him about those musicians like Mel Keller, like Mamelo, like Merton Kam, he hardly knew who they are.
And this is a musician we're talking about, not just anyone.
Yes. Yeah. Tal Mayalin is a great school, but I think they did neglect a bit the history of jazz in Israel, the early history of jazz in Israel, because these musicians really, they were pioneers.
Yeah.
They held a frontier, a fort. And
so how long did it take between you realizing he lacks that, what you think is basic information, and when you got to the point of, okay, I'm putting a book together?
Well, I started telling him that I will compile some stuff together for him, so he can get some ideas and the knowledge about that time.
Yeah.
And I didn't even believe that there is so much material.
That's what I wanted to say, because you collect some stuff for him. You collected a hell of a lot of stuff for him, and all kinds of stuff. I mean, there are photos, there are interviews, there are news articles. How did you find all of this info?
Well, luckily for us, we live in the internet era.
Yeah.
And by the way, I admire all these researchers that did their work without the internet, because about 80% of the book I didn't have to get up of my chair.
Wow.
And I went to online archives, and when I saw some interesting article, I went to the library to photo it or to read it.
Now, you found a lot of information, as we said, and many of it revealed, at least to me it was a revelation, that some very heavy hitters from the early days of jazz came to perform in Israel.
Yes, it was a revelation for me too, as a matter of fact, because as I remember when I was a teenager, I remember the giants of jazz coming to Israel, Thelonious Monk and Sonny Stitt and Art Blakey and some others. And but I realized when I did the research that even in the early 50s, Lena Horne was here, the singer. In 55, Lionel Hampton came here. In 66, he came. In 56, he came again. So for a tour of more than 30, that's his poster,
Yeah.
for a tour of more than 30 days all over the country.
Yeah.
And 59, the heavyweight champion, Louis Armstrong, was here.
Yeah.
And those people back in the 50s were received here as rock stars.
Yeah. So why did they even come to Israel?
Well, there were Hebrew impresarios that thought it was profitable. And it was, by the way. It was. But it started being profitable when Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong came in '61. They couldn't perform all the booked concerts, and some of them were canceled.
That was the end of that.
Yes, but you have to remember that rock and roll took over.
Yeah.
So the youth.
So people were still making money off of music, just different music.
Right.
Yeah. Now, did that lead to people getting into jazz at the time? I mean, people who grew up in the 50s, in the 60s, listening to these people, seeing them in Israel, did that lead to a wave of jazz musicians from Israel?
I think the visits of those, the tours of those great musicians contributed a lot to the Israeli musicians, but they didn't have any sources in Israel. Not in the 50s, not in the 60s, not in the 70s even.
Yeah.
By the end of the 70s, most of the young musicians went abroad to study because there was no school. There were no schools in Israel.
Right.
But the coming of these musicians really, they taught the Israeli musicians a lot. They play with them in jam sessions. This guy, P.C. Osherovich, by the way, he told me that till he played with the members of the band of Lionel Hampton, he didn't know what jazz is.
Wow.
And I think, besides the audience, I think those visits were very important for the musicians themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Now, there's also, at some points in the book, you refer the readers to an online channel where there are some rare tracks that you've compiled together. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I found out that there are recordings of Israeli jazz back from '56. They were made by the Kol Israel, by the Israel Broadcast Agency, and I thought that writing a book about music without music, it's not enough. So I opened a YouTube channel called Jazz in Israel, and there are references within the text wherever I found that it's worthwhile to listen to a piece. Reading that text,
it seems like there are a lot of tracks that are worthwhile listening to. It's,
about 90.
About 90.
Yes,
wow.
yes.
Wow. All right, so even without the book, maybe we can go look for that, listen to some early Israeli jazz. Yair, thanks so much for coming in.
I just want to...
Yeah, please.
I just want to reference some photographers because I found some treasures of Israeli jazz photos with Abraham Kabilio, who really photographed the scene from 71 on, and Tzachi Ostrovsky, who did it as well, and really treasures, and some of them are published for the first time.
Well, thanks to them as well for making this possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
And best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Now, last week, MTV Israel held its first music award ceremony amidst the sensitive situation here in Israel. Everyone from the local popular music scene gathered to celebrate the best of the year, including, of course, Sandy Fordis, who brought us the story.
Last Thursday night, the roof of the Azrieli Tower in the heart of Tel Aviv became the scene of the very first MTV Israel Music Awards, an atmosphere of celebration for the VIP guests and famous local pop musicians and celebrities, most of them unknown outside Israel. After a pilot organized last year, leaders of MTV Israel decided it was time to launch the first televised ceremony.
There's a competition of the European Music Awards that's called the Best Global Act. Each country does an own segment of it. It's called Best Local Act, and then we have to choose our local Best Israeli Act.
During the ceremony, Israeli stars Sarit Haddad, Shiri Maimon, Harel Scott, Natan Goshen, and rapper Subliminal performed in front of an audience made up mostly of teenagers. Young talent was also among the 5 candidates nominated for the big prize of the evening: Eden Ben-Zaken, Guy and Yahel, Izzy, and Eliad Nahum, and the Ethiopian-Israeli duo Kafeh Shechor Chazak. all excited to be part of this event.
They give us the stage to do what we like to do. Usually it's only on YouTube and Facebook, and they gave us the opportunity to go on stage, to get interviews in places that we never had. And it's a big honor.
When we were little, we watched MTV, and today we can be part of such a ceremony. This is very emotional for us. It's great.
The event took place during a period of great unrest in Israel.
It's impressive what they managed to do tonight, and I think that after the week that has passed, it is important to be here, to continue to show that we are still here, which does not yield to fear.
Established in 2011, MTV Israel brought the international music channel to the country. Besides airing the hits, it tries to offer opportunities to artists who have not yet gone mainstream.
I think it was time that a truly specialized network provides opportunities for artists to perform on such scenes. That of MTV is amazing. I hope it will continue.
I think this is something that had to happen. There's a very good music industry in Israel. This year we discovered great musical diversity that is now on the radio or in concerts.
Israel is the only country in MTV Europe to organize its own ceremony. And while it was authorized and supported by the parent company, they did not send any international artists.
I think it's really the beginning of something. I hope that next year foreign artists will come and attend.
Meanwhile, this first ceremony was a success, especially for the winner of the evening, who is excited to fly to Milan for the MTV Europe Music Awards.
I hope the public will vote for me when I represent Israel at the EMA. The people will see a different face of our country, and not portrayed in the media to foreigners. All the cultural side, music, the artistic side. It's very important that the world know that we also have this in Israel.
Now it's time for his fans to wish the young musician good luck.
Congratulations to the winners. In a moment, we'll see how low-budget video effects help videos go viral in South America. But first, here's our cultural recommendation for today.
She doesn't want to put a name on her music. Other people can put a name on what she does, and it's still not an easy task. Known for her technique, energetic live performances, and a blend of musical genres such as post-bop, progressive rock, classical, and fusion in her compositions, Japanese jazz fusion sensation Hiromi Uehara will be back in Tel Aviv for one show with her band Sonic Bloom. This is the third time the 30-year-old pianist performs in Israel after rising to fame with her debut album in 2003. Hiromi has toured the world and appeared in the most prestigious jazz festivals. Currently, Hiromi is touring to promote her album. Alive is the latest chapter in her ever-evolving musical life. The album is made by songs that deal with things and emotion that we encounter in life.
Daniel Campos is already right here in the studio with something that's perfect for me. I love this stuff. Go
Absolutely.
ahead.
Very fun stuff. Let's start with this song, En tus tierras bailaré, this viral video from Peru, which has been going around. It's about Israel, quite rare. We'll speak about the facts afterwards.
All right. Now this looks like it was produced probably early 90s, I would say, something around then.
Well, it's actually a new video, and these are the effects being used even by commercial brands. Let's have a look at the new commercial of Aceite Sabrosón, cooking oil from Ecuador.
Promoción, si un familiar vive en España o si tu primito trabaja en Italia, no importa el lugar, van a regresar. Aceite Sabrosón a la familia unirá.
Sin importar dónde vivan, Aceite Sabrosón junto al delfín.
All right, so what you're saying is that these old school effects are now in the mainstream in South America?
Very popular, especially in Andean countries, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, and they're very effective, like I said.
I love it. I think it's great, but unfortunately we're out of time. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Oded.
Thank you for watching. Join us again tomorrow, please.